Hi, and welcome to Grandparents and Beyond. I'm Nina Walden, and I'm excited to go over the next source book with you.
This month's topic is Israel and the Jewish spirit, because Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, is coming up soon. This booklet focuses on the positive spiritual aspects of our connection to Israel. This is not to minimize the profound challenges that Israel faces. We hope that you and your youngster will find important and inspiring ideas to explore in the conversations and activities. Before you start, make sure everyone is on board, including the parents or guardians. Read the texts and choose the activities and conversation questions that work for you. Don't feel that you need to complete the entire booklet. The recommended ages for texts, conversations, and activities are marked by the icons you see on the screen. But your youngsters might be ready for things that are in an older age group, or they might enjoy a game that is recommended for younger kids. You and your youngster are the best judges of which activities to do, and the discussions can go wherever you like. There are no right or wrong answers.
Also, make sure that you have any supplies you'll need for the activities. One of the activities is a photo collage about Israel. It can be made on the screen or in person. If you're doing it in person, you'll need photos of Israel, which can be found online and printed out, or found in magazines, or maybe you've been to Israel and have photos. There's a recipe called Fruit Fusion, which includes fruits from the many places where Jewish people have lived. You'll want to have those ingredients in advance, of course. If you're doing this virtually, I want you to know that it works really well. You just do it in your own separate kitchens put together. It's an easy recipe. There's a fun art activity where you make a doorknob decoration in the art style of the early days of Israel. Again, it's very simple, and we'll go over the materials you will need for that activity. Two more activities that you might want to prepare for in advance just need to be printed out. One is Made in Israel, where you put a check on technological advances that you believe are real, and then highlight if you think they were made in Israel. For this, just print out page 8 of the booklet. The other one is one where you create your own app. All you need to do for this is print out page 9 of the booklet. In my experience, kids really love this activity so much that you might want to print out more than one copy of that page.
We'll start now on page 1. The land of Israel is more than a physical location. It's the homeland of the Jewish people. Let's start with a story that explains how the land of Israel got its name. We can learn a lot about Israel from this story. Click on the picture to watch the video. It's about 3 minutes long. It's called God's Story, Jacob Wrestles. In Jacob's wrestling match, he symbolically wrestles with his personal challenges and overcomes them. As you watch, consider how Jacob's struggle foreshadows the struggle of the Jewish people. Jacob prevails and is blessed with a symbolic name change from Jacob to Israel.
God's story. Jacob wrestles. So part of God's story is about the time a guy named Jacob wrestled with a stranger. And it begins like this. Jacob grew up with a big, tough, hairy twin brother.
The name change from Jacob to Israel underscores his newfound ability to face personal challenges head-on and find comfort. After centuries of struggle, the Jewish people can find refuge in the modern state of Israel. The text on which this video is based is on the next page. For youngsters in 3rd grade and up, you might want to read the introduction in the text. Whether or not you read it with your youngster, the conversation questions are excellent ways to get you talking about important things. Throughout history, Jews have faced various struggles and challenges, from slavery during biblical times to centuries of persecution and violence against Jewish communities, culminating in the tragedy of the Holocaust. How do you feel it is to have a sovereign Jewish state post-Holocaust? You can take any of these questions and discuss them. Don't feel that you need to discuss all of them. The next activity highlights the fact that Israel has been central to Jewish people for over 3,000 years. Jews have lived in the land of Israel continuously for more than 3,000 years, although they were not always in political control and were not always the majority of the population. You probably know that Jews not living in Israel are said to be living in the diaspora. The word diaspora comes from the Greek word diasporin, which means disperse, dia, across, plus spirin, scatter. The Jewish diaspora is often said to have begun in 586 BCE, when the kingdom of Judea was conquered by the Babylonians, who destroyed the ancient temple in Jerusalem and exiled the Jewish population. Ever since, significant numbers of Jews have lived outside the land of Israel, and throughout history, many have expressed deep longing to return to the Jewish homeland. Nonetheless, beginning with a portion of the Judeans who in 538 BCE were permitted to return to their homeland, but chose to remain in Babylon, some Jews in exile throughout history have chosen to remain in foreign lands, indicative of the complicated relationship Jews living outside of Israel have historically had with Israel and their Jewish identity. The activity here is make your own mizrach. In many Jewish homes, a decoration called a mizrach means east in Hebrew, hangs on the eastern wall to remind us of where Jerusalem is. You can do this on your computer. Your youngster can walk you through it, or maybe even create a background for you if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself. You and your youngsters can also do physical collages of Israel and hang them on your walls. The next activity is about immigration to Israel and Israel's multicultural society. People from every continent have come to Israel to find freedom and better lives. Each group brings with it different customs from the old country, which mix with the Jewish way of life that we share. It's a fusion of ideas and cultures that makes Israel a special place. This recipe is called fruit fusion, a fresh fruit snack or dessert. Mix together fruits from many places where Jewish people have lived. Add some sugar, top it off with whipped cream — Israel is a land of milk and honey — and enjoy this special treat. You'll need an orange for Israel, a cup of grapes for Western Europe, 1 cup of cherries for Eastern Europe, 1 apple for the United States, a banana for Ethiopia, a quarter of a papaya for India, 1 pear for Argentina, a half cup of blueberries for Canada, 2 kiwis for Australia, a quarter cup of chopped dates for Morocco, and a quarter cup of sugar. And here's what you do. You peel the fruits that need to be peeled and cut the large fruit into bite-sized pieces. Remove any seeds as well. Combine all of the fruit together in a large bowl. Add the sugar and mix well to make sure each piece of fruit is coated. Cover the bowl lightly with plastic wrap and let it sit for 20 minutes to become syrupy. Dish out individual servings and top each one with whipped cream. B'tei avon. Enjoy! You can do this together in person or side by side on Zoom. It works great both ways. If you wonder how many Jewish people have come from each place, you can click on the link at the bottom of the page to find out. It's really interesting. The next activity is an arts and crafts activity called Put the Am in Amanut. Am means nation and Amanut means art. The Chalutzim, early pioneers in Israel, felt that Israel needed to have a national style of art that reflected the way Jewish people had come to Israel from all over the world. The style, named Basale, was a mixture of European and Middle Eastern and was taught at the Basale School of Arts and Crafts, which is still the premier art school in Israel. The Basale School of Arts and Crafts was founded in 1906 and was named after Basale ben Uri, the man appointed by Moses to oversee the design and construction of the tabernacle, the portable temple that the Israelites carried with them in the desert. There's a link to the Basale website on this page, as you can see. Students at the Basale school during the early days carved sculptures from wood of the Israeli olive trees. They also made ritual objects like candlesticks, kiddush cups, and menorot. These were often made from metal. Basale students also designed posters to tell the rest of the world about Israel. You can see an example of a poster on this page.
The link on the page goes to the craft activity. It's really easy and it always comes out great. Let's take a look. You'll need a disposable baking tin, scissors, a ballpoint pen, a pad of paper, tape, and a plastic spoon. Now, here's what you do. Using your scissors, cut away the sides of the baking tin. After you've cut out the bottom, carefully fold down the edges so they're smooth and even. You want to rub them with a spoon to make them nice and flat. That way there are no sharp edges. If your tin had any kind of writing on it or wrinkles like this, you can rub them out with a spoon. And it all becomes nice and flat. Draw your design on a sheet of paper. Some suggestions: your family name in Hebrew and English, or anything that reminds you of Israel. Remember, if you're writing a word, write it backwards so that when you press it through on your silver, it will come out forwards. Then, place your metal shape on top of the pad, and then place your design on top of it. Tape it in place so it won't move around while you're drawing. Trace over your design with a ballpoint pen. This always comes out good. There's absolutely nothing you can do to make it not come out good. When you're finished tracing your design, you're going to make a hole so that you can hang this on your doorknob. Make sure that you cut a hole large enough to get over your doorknob, but also that you leave enough room around so that it won't break. You'll notice I made a square. The reason I made a square is so that I can fold back these sides and press them down also, so there won't be any sharp edges. Delet means door. When you're finished, hang your delet decoration proudly.
The last topic in our source book is Israeli innovation. Israel is famous for advances in medicine, renewable energy, and agricultural innovation to improve the quality of life for people all over the world. The foundation of Israel itself might be seen as an entrepreneurial project. The Chalutzim, the early pioneers, who came during the later part of the 19th century to build the modern state of Israel, took great risk. Despite the lack of natural resources and danger from hostile neighbors, their determination and creativity enabled them to fulfill their vision. Jewish culture encourages questioning, debating, and original thinking, the perfect incubator for cutting-edge creative technology. The texts we see here are good springboards for discussion about this topic. The first text is great for everybody. It's something to live by. It was said by Theodor Herzl. He said, "If you will it, it is no dream." The next texts are easy to understand for grades 3 through 5 to adults. You can see the Hebrew here, and I'll read the English. "I, the Eternal, have called you in righteousness, and will hold your hand, and will keep you, and give you for a covenant of the people, for a light to the nations." The next one, said by David Ben-Gurion, is very interesting. "In Israel, in order to be a realist, you must believe in miracles." And then this was said by Meir Brand, the managing director of Google Israel, South Africa, and Greece. "Zionism is not only about the prosperity of the people in Israel, but also Jewish people bringing more prosperity to the world." These are interesting questions for conversation. How can these texts inspire us to overcome our own personal challenges? The text from Isaiah and the quote from Meir Brand tell us that it is a Jewish mission to make the world a better place. What are some ways to do this? That's a good conversation to have. And here's a fun activity to bring the topic to light. It's called Made in Israel. Look at the list below of 11 innovations that changed the world. Do you think they're all real? How many do you think were created in Israel? If you think the innovation is real, put a check next to it. You could print this page out and do this activity. If you think it was created in Israel, highlight it. Go to 11 innovations to see if you're correct. So after doing this activity, you can click on the link and see whether these are real or not. The sniff phone, Rewalk, PillCam, the flexible stent, firewall, ICQ, which was the first global instant messenger, Disk on Key, the world's first USB drive, Netafim, a desert-friendly irrigation system, WaterGen, drinking from water produced from thin air, BioBee, harmless pest control, and Mobileye, a life-saving AI technology to make driving safer. And here is a fun creative activity, Tikkun Olam Israeli style. Imagine that you're an Israeli inventor. In the space below, invent a new and helpful app. So you'll put the name of the inventor or inventors, you and your youngsters, the name of the app, whatever you decide to name it, and you'll make up an icon like you see on your phone and draw it in the square below. You'll tell what the app does and how it benefits the world. It will be interesting to see what you come up with. We end this topic with a fun, personalized, interactive tour of Israel brought to you by Birthright Israel. Just click on the link below.
Hey you! Welcome to Israel, a land which has been a bridge between continents, nations, and traditions for thousands of years, as well as a bustling modern state that ignites the imagination. Today we're going on an adventure, a Birthright Israel adventure. We will explore modern and ancient sites, we'll hit the beach, we will taste great food, we'll meet amazing people. But the best thing is that you decide where to go.
Enjoy the materials and see you next month. If you have any questions, please contact me, Nina, at chaimitzvah.org. Thanks. Bye.